of optimism today.
There is impatience, frustration, even for many anger. To those who see this as public attitude as disappointing or dangerous, I would point out that just such a mood was at the heart of the American experiment in self-government and personal liberty. Discontent with punitive taxation and the excessive bureaucracy of an oppressive government was exactly the emotion that put the spark to our own revolution and the democratic way of life it gave us. The battle, which took place on a farm not far from here near Saratoga, was the turning point in that revolution. And I would remind those who are disturbed by the people's current mood of the lesson from that battle, the lesson that much good can come from the people's determination to see that government remains their servant and not their master.
Borrowing a phrase from the U.S. Constitution, we the people, Pataki outlined what he thinks New Yorkers believe and want.
We the people believe we can build a criminal justice system that protects the law-abiding and takes repeat violent felons off our street. We, the people, believe we can create a school system that ends disorder in the classroom, cuts bureaucracy, and makes excellence in learning and teaching, again, the hallmark of New York schools. We, the people, believe we can rid ourselves of a system of burdensome taxation and oppressive regulation that makes it too hard for entrepreneurs and small business men and women to expand, innovate, and become the source of new jobs in our economy. We, the people, believe we can encourage a business climate that will continue to make New York the home of commerce, finance, and industry, and a state where businesses, large or small, are anxious to locate, create jobs, and expand opportunity. We, the people, believe we can cut spending and taxes, restore incentives and initiative, and return freedom and responsibility to the individual. We, the people, believe we can restore pride and dignity to those in need of help by breaking the cycle of dependency and replacing welfare with workfare. And we, the people, believe we can make government serve not the special interests, but the public interest, not those in office, but those who placed them in office. We, the people, know that we must launch a new era of individual liberty, responsibility, and opportunity by removing obstacles government has placed in the path of an energetic and creative people. And to launch that new era is why the people have placed us here today. Let us begin.
You know, a common theme heard all through the campaign was a call for change, and the new governor said today it is time to give New Yorkers what they demand.
That's right. He also made a pledge to everyone that your concerns will not be overlooked.
Today, then, as I begin my tasks as governor, I make a pledge that I hope will be heard in every home in New York. My pledge that on this day of inaugural festivities and New Year's celebrations, that your frustrations will not be forgotten, that your problems will not be overlooked, that I understand that the crisis is real, a crisis not of the people's making, but of the government's. And I say, what those in government have done, those in government can undo. Say to the members of the legislature and my new administration as we begin together our work for a better New York, the people have turned to us for change and renewal. Let us get it right. The people seek change. Let us give them sweeping and fundamental change, change that is certain and immediate. We can reduce spending. We can reduce taxes and regulation. We can control crime. We can improve our schools. We can create workfare to replace welfare. Others have, and so can we. President Clinton has already announced the privatization of some federal agencies, $24 billion in spending cuts, innovative housing vouchers, and top-to-bottom welfare reform. I applaud the efforts of the new Congress and the President to move in this direction. But I do not propose today that New York merely follow the example of others. New Yorkers who built the Erie Canal and the greatest city in the world shouldn't be waiting. We should be leading, and we will. Our goal is not simply to do better. Our goal is to make this state again first in new jobs and economic opportunity, first in safe streets and sound schools, first in the number of creative citizens and productive businesses it attracts. I want our children and grandchildren to have the opportunity to build their lives here and not elsewhere. Our goal, simply put, is New York as the best place to live, the best place to build a future, to find a job, create a career, and raise a family. New York's children belong in New York State. What New York has been for us, a source of economic opportunity and civic pride, we must make it again for those who follow.
Of course, thousands of people came from around the state to be part of today.
We talked to some of the folks as they got off the so-called Pataki party train that came up from Westchester and Putnam counties, and some other people we met at the People's Reception at the Empire State Plaza.
Yeah, we'll do good with George Pataki. He's a very smart man. I've had to correspond with him a couple times over the past few years. I've been very impressed with him. I'm really happy that we have a good leader like him.
A new era, Pataki. All the New Yorkers are very happy and pleased that for the first time in 20 years or more, we have been able to bring Republicans and Democrats for the good government. That's what we stand for.
It's a great opportunity for the state. I've been a Republican for many years, and hopefully it's a great beginning.
Oh, I think that he will do what he says he will do. I believe that he will come through for the people.
It's an experience you dream about. Yeah, it's really great.
I lived in Albany in 63 to 65, and I don't even know where I am. It's changed some. Somebody spent a hell of a lot of money.
Governor Cuomo vetoed the death penalty 12 times, and the legislature was never able to override that veto. George Pataki promises to bring the electric chair back to New York, prompting the biggest crowd reaction during the entire speech.
I will be putting before the legislature measures to eliminate work release and abolish parole for violent felons. Violent felons belong in jail. Violent felons belong in jail, and with your support, that is where they are going to be. Let me also note that when a society does not express its own horror at the crime of murder by enforcing the ultimate sanction against it, innocent lives are put at risk. Not out of a sense of vindictiveness then, but a sense of justice. Indeed, a sense of compassion for those who otherwise might become victims of murder. I will ask the legislature to pass, and I will sign and enforce the death penalty. And let me say, if one police officer's life is saved, if one less child is caught in a crossfire, if one fewer cab driver or shopkeeper is killed in a robbery, then the death penalty will have proven itself worthwhile.
Amid all the applause during the governor's talk about the death penalty, Governor Cuomo sat stoically. He, of course, did not applaud. Part of Governor Pataki's platform is something that's been the cornerstone of Republican ideology, that less government is more. And Governor Pataki says there has to be more emphasis on individual responsibility.
This tendency of government, with sometimes the best of intentions to grow bigger and more powerful, has always posed history's most serious obstacle to social progress and its greatest threat to personal freedom. When government accepts responsibility for people, then people no longer take responsibility for themselves. Individual responsibility and personal freedom are inevitably linked. Limited government, then, was not just a slogan for the American founders, path to greatness and the beginning of political wisdom. Let us resolve now that in the months and weeks ahead, we will return to such wisdom. We will begin where the people want us to begin, reducing the size and cost of government and getting rid of unnecessary and counterproductive programs. The people believe that government has become too big, too unwieldy, too distant, too arrogant, that every day government seems to grow, not to benefit the taxpayers or the people, but the bureaucrats, office holders, and the special interests. The people are right. Today, government is simply too large. There are now 73 volumes of government regulations in New York State, over 55,000 pages of regulations laid end to end. That's 12 miles of red tape, enough to stretch from Albany to Schenectady and back again. This is wrong. This has to stop, and it will. The facts are these. Spending is too high. The regulatory burden on our people excessive. Our tax burden too heavy. Let me repeat what the people of this state already know. State government is too big and it spends too much money. It's simple. It's time for a change. Let us then cut government spending and cut it again, remembering always that by downsizing government, we can restore people's confidence in the future by expanding individual responsibility and individual freedom. This is the challenge of the 90s, the challenge we face as we prepare to enter the next century, to preserve and protect personal freedom and to restore individual responsibility. And as we confront our state's fiscal crisis, let us remember a simple truth. More government means higher taxes and fewer jobs. Less government means lower taxes and more jobs.
Our own John McLoughlin has been covering the story with us all day long. He's live outside the inaugural gala outside the Omni Hotel. John, you've had a chance to talk with a lot of the local politicians today. What are they saying?
Angela, Governor Pataki got very high marks from the crowd at the Nick Arena this afternoon. Of course, it was a largely partisan crowd, mostly Republicans. And just as proof of that, there's a gentleman who walked up to me. You're from Peekskill, right? You just come out of the gala.
Correct.
Okay, you've known George Pataki for what, 20 years now?
Approximately.
What's your name, sir?
Mort Bensky.
Okay, what was your favorite line out of the address today?
Nothing can match it. He said words to the effect, when government becomes responsible for a person, the person becomes irresponsible.
Okay, and that was it summed up for you your feelings about government?
Sums up the whole essence of the whole Republican Party's philosophy, George Pataki's philosophy of reducing government down to something we can afford down to something we can manage.
Okay, thanks an awful lot for joining us, okay?
Thank you.
Like I say, Republicans were very high on George Pataki's remarks, but even Democrats were giving him a good reception today. There will be time over the next few months for them to criticize and to carp and to pick apart his programs. But for today, most of the reaction was very positive.
I just think it's absolutely fantastic, John. I mean, he said the right words. He said them well. I think it's a message of hope.
I am a supporter of the death penalty, John, but it's also quite a sad commentary on the state of society today that the largest amount of applause was for the reinstitution of the death penalty.
George pretty much spelled out today, as governor, what he talked about during the campaign, and that is that the will of the people is that there is too much government.
This marks the end of the Pataki for Governor campaign, and you, from this day forward, go into Governor Pataki governing the state of New York.
Senator, after taking so much criticism throughout that campaign, you're going to be pulling the strings, he's going to be the puppet. What's your reaction?
You heard George Pataki. George Pataki believes what he says. He wrote his speech. Those words came from a man from his heart, from his intellect, from his mind. And let me tell you something, he's committed to putting them into action.
So I said to Senator D'Amato, what will your role be in the new administration? He said, I will have no role in the new administration. What about phone calls? He says, well, if I'm asked for advice, I'll give the advice, of course. And that's what we're going to see over the next several months, over the next year or so, Angela, how much of a role Senator D'Amato does indeed have in the State House here in Albany.
It'll be interesting to see. Okay, thanks, John, and we'll talk with you more in just a couple of minutes.
The new governor also plans changes in the welfare system. He says the current setup simply traps people.
The welfare reforms I present will stress reductions in bureaucratic overhead, consolidation of programs, tighten restrictions, but especially learnfare and workfare, all of them based on the principle that helping those less fortunate is a solemn obligation, but that one of the most valuable means of providing such help is to look on welfare not as a way of life, but as a means of temporary assistance, a step towards the dignity of self-sufficiency. Welfare was created to be a safety net that should act as a trampoline so that people bounce back to full and productive lives. Instead, that safety net has become a bureaucratic spider web, a web that entangles people and from which few ever escape. We intend to help them out of that web of dependency and back to lives that are rich in dignity and opportunity.
Governor, of course, has a lot of things he wants to do, cutting spending and Medicaid and all the rest, and welfare might be the biggest nut he's got to crack.
Oh, yeah, well, there's so many things, and when you hear these speeches and you see the crowd so behind him and everybody so excited and enthusiastic, you hear the words and you think, oh, gosh, anything's possible. He can do it. We're going to see some positive changes for New York State. But again, he's got so much to try and tackle here with the budget, and can he do it? That's the question.
Let's ask a man who might know. John McLoughlin, outside the Omni Hotel. You've heard a lot of politicians promise a lot of things. What do you see as his prospects for getting some of this done?
Jim, a lot of impressions from the inaugural address by Governor Pataki today, but the one that stands out in my mind, of course, is the lack of specifics about so much of what he plans to do. And that is not a criticism, because that's in the nature of an inaugural address. An inaugural address is a very broadly sketched outline of what you plan to do, what you hope to do over the coming 4 years, or at least over the coming 12 months. But if I were working for the state government here in the city of Albany, I would be very concerned about what Governor Pataki is going to say on Wednesday at 1 o'clock when he delivers the State of the State address. Be also very concerned about what is in that state budget when he delivers it to the legislature on February 1. Because he's talking about, of course, plugging a $5 billion structural deficit in next year's budget, and he's talking about roughly a $62 billion budget. How do you do that? Now, he says you don't have to cut, or you don't have to raise taxes, you don't have to cut essential services. How do you do that then?
John, after our coverage this afternoon, at the end of it, we talked to Assemblyman John Faso of Kinderhook, who, of course, headed up the budget transition part of it all. And Assemblyman Faso said that the specifics on the budget cutting won't come out until the budget is presented to the legislature February 1st. So what do you expect to hear in the State of the State on Wednesday?
Well, the State of the State is kind of a mid-gap type thing. It goes a little bit more specific than does the inaugural address, but nowhere near as specific as those very black and white numbers that you see in the budget when it comes out, the book that's about that thick, the executive budget that comes out on February 1st. So it will give you a little more detail of what George Pataki hopes to do, how he plans to cover that $5 billion projected deficit, and how he plans to do that without cutting services. Does that mean laying off workers? How many workers are we talking about? What agencies might be consolidated? What agencies might be closed down? He talked about closing down the energy office. So again, the State of the State presents us with a little bit more information than does the inaugural address, not quite as much as the budget.
And of course, Johnny, the one thing that there really is very little question about is the death penalty issue. We heard him talk about it again today, and I keep going back to that picture of Cuomo sitting there with his wife beside him silently, just staring straight ahead, not responding as the masses were just clapping around him. I mean, I guess we can expect to see a change in the death penalty pretty soon.
Yeah, well, you know, you've got Sheldon Silver, the Assembly Speaker, who is in favor of the death penalty. You've got enough people to pass it, and you have had for a number of years now. And, of course, you've got the Republican Senate, which is very much in favor of the death penalty. And now we have Governor Pataki, who says, I'm going to sign it. Again, sitting there watching Governor Cuomo, not just on the death penalty, but on a host of different issues, it seemed to me that this man must have been dying 1,000 deaths listening to so much talk, which is really the antithesis of what he views as government's role. George Pataki saying that government has to retrench. They should leave more things to the individual. They leave more things to localities and to local governments. And really the antithesis of what this whole 12 years of the Cuomo administration has been about. Of course, the voters rejected that on November 8th. So that's apparently what they're calling for right now.
That's right, and we'll see if George Pataki indeed can deliver what they hope he can, and exactly what that'll be. Again, we'll find out a few more details on Wednesday during the State of the State.
Jim and Angela, can you hear me?
Yes, John.
One of the things that impressed me kind of negatively, and so much about this day was very classy, really. I thought Pataki's speech was well delivered. It was a well-orchestrated event over the Nick Arena. But one of the things that I thought was kind of disappointing was no public events. There was really nothing for the public. You needed tickets to get into the Knickerbocker Arena. You needed tickets to get into the so-called People's event afterwards, the party that went on and so on. This was $100, I guess, $100 a head, wasn't it, Danny? And so there was really nothing for the public. The only point where you had any chance to see George Pataki, I guess, is perhaps rolling down State Street in his limousine. But there really wasn't any event that could be called a public event in the true, sense of the word.
I suppose one thing that it might have done, at least perhaps maybe even inadvertently, was that it kept any anti-Pataki people from demonstrating or anything like that, because there was really, as you point out, no cause for them to be downtown.
There was one demonstrator, by the way. There was an anti-abortion demonstrator this morning in front of the Knickerbocker Arena, marching back and forth very quietly, made no ruckus whatsoever, just back and forth, and that was about it. I saw nothing else. I mean, there might have been others, but I saw nothing else beyond that.
Okay, Johnny, as always, we really appreciate your insight. A lot of very good points made there. And, of course, we'll go back to you plenty of times as we cover the Pataki administration. Thanks again for all that, Johnny.
I want to move now to a very personal part of the governor's speech today when he reflected back on his family, his own life in the Hudson Valley. He was speaking from the heart.
I love this state, its people and places for many reasons. I think of the bustle and excitement of New York City and the memorable years Libby and I lived there. I think of how our family has enjoyed, more than I can say, the natural beauty of places like Montauk or the time we spent upstate, or how much our children, Emily and Teddy and Allison and Owen, enjoy swimming near a covered bridge on the Battenkill River and walking the fields and the farms. But always in my own mind, I come back to the Hudson Valley, a place whose beauty gave America schools of great writers and great painters. Proudly and humbly, I think, too, of a local mailman's son who grew up in that valley and found there in his hometown of Peekskill all that is rich and good in the American dream. So that in my mind, when I'm home, two things stand out. First, the goodness of the people. And second, the only word I can find to express my feelings, gratitude. As New Yorkers and Americans, we are all grateful for the opportunity we have had in our own lives and for those who gave it to us. I think sometimes about my four grandparents from Hungary, Ireland, and Italy, going through those gates and lines at Ellis Island. I know that their deep religious faith and their own daring spirit sustained them. But still, I am sure that if Janos and Elizabeth Pataki, Agnes Lynch, or Matteo Lagana, they must have felt, as Governor Cuomo's or Senator D'Amato's or Senator Moynihan's parents or grandparents must have felt, their own fears about how they would do in this new land, in this new world. And I sometimes wonder if, as they filed through the lines of inspectors and health officials, what they would have said or felt if some predictor of the future had been able to tell them that they would not only just make a home here in New York, but also find so much opportunity that one day their grandson would be governor of the state of New York.
Well, in addition to the governor's first speech, there was also business to take care of.
The governor, of course, repeated his oath of office. He was actually sworn in Saturday evening and took office officially last midnight. And his lieutenant governor, attorney general, and controller also sworn in publicly today.
Of the office of Comptroller of the State of New York.
Of the office of Comptroller of the State of New York.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Mr. Comptroller, thank you.
Faithfully discharge.
And that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Attorney General.
The duties of the office of Attorney General.
According to the very best of my ability.
According to the very best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Governor.
The duties of the office. The duties of the office of Lieutenant Governor of the State of New York. Of Lieutenant Governor of the State of New York. According to the best of my ability. According to the best of my ability. So help me God. So help me God.
Duties of the office
of Governor of the State of New York.
Of Governor of the State of New York.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
21-gun salute being fired outside as the governor sworn in on the inside of the Knickerbocker Arena. And no matter who the politician is, no matter what the office is, an inaugural event is certainly stirring to watch, isn't it?
And actually, we should say 19-gun salute. I believe it's the president. Right, they're easy to get confused. It is an exciting time. And again, no matter what your political preference, you have to look at that and say, maybe it can happen. Maybe there can be some positive change for New York. It is a very exciting time. And because so much of the ceremony was limited to a small audience, we were very pleased to be able to bring our live coverage to you all today.
Hope you could see it because it was an historic time. You know, if you remember back when Nelson Rockefeller was governor, Nelson Rockefeller was a liberal Republican. So the transfer of power from his administration through Lieutenant Governor Wilson, who served out the final year of the term, into the liberal Democrat Hugh Carey, there wasn't much of a change in ideology. Some, but certainly not as stark a change as we've seen going today from Mario Cuomo to George Pataki, the conservative Republican. So it was fairly historic, and certainly for this generation of New Yorkers.
And again, just to watch the faces of Mario Cuomo, who was there trying to be supportive and to put the best face forward, of course, but you can tell the ideologies are so different in some respects that it is very difficult, obviously, for him to watch and to anticipate many of the changes that could very well come very soon.
Well, politics is of winning and losing, and most who are in it for any length of time feel both at one point or another, and certainly Governor Cuomo got that side of it today as he had to watch the Republicans bask in their glory.
No doubt about it. And now, of course, time for all of us to see exactly what happens. And as we have done in the past, we will continue to cover the administration as closely as we can and to bring you fresh perspectives on everything that is certainly eminent.
We will report it to you as it happens. And thank you for joining us here tonight. We hope you were able to see some of the inaugural coverage we've had throughout the day. It's been our pleasure to bring it to you. And again, thank you for joining us here tonight. Have a good night and Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, Angela.
Happy New Year to you, too. Happy New Year, everyone. Good night.
Good night.